best fight I ever saw, honestly, skill-wise, was a guy by the name of Salvador Sanchez.
See, I don't know who Salvador Sanchez
because,
is.
That's right, because you're not that big of a boxing fan like I do. You don't study it. The best fight I ever saw, honestly, skill-wise, was a guy by the name of Salvador Sanchez.
See, I don't know who Salvador Sanchez
because,
is.
That's right, because you're not that big of a boxing fan like I do. You don't study it.
Lopez is covering up well over on the rope. Of course, will be banging away at them throughout this round. Solid right hand from Sanchez, who's now teeing off on that right hand lead, Andy.
That light, the left eye, he's got trouble looking from that eye. And this kid's smart enough to take advantage of it.
He is hurt, isn't he?
He is really
hurt. Sanchez, the referee's going to stop it. The referee's going to stop it, that's it. Good right hand, and see Kamani on February 16th.
Sanchez is moving around real well, away from the...
It's personal between me and you, and I'm going to do you some serious harm, you big stiff idiot.
The Untouchable True School Sports Empire proudly presents something the boxing game's been missing. Hey, what's going on? It's your boy BT, and I came here to talk some boxing with the thousands of True School Sports subscribers. Now, you know, recently, when we had the whole Canelo exposed by the Bivol Week here on True School Sports, and then a couple times in the past as well, I've always made it a point to tell people that you know, I don't think Canelo Alvarez is the best Mexican fighter ever. You guys out there heard me say that it's Salvador Sanchez on his own island. You know, he's the best Mexican fighter there ever was, and that there will ever be. And then it's everybody else fighting for second place. That's genuinely how I feel. Now, this video is not about Canelo. This video is more a video to educate and appreciate the greatness of a man who is not just an all-time great Mexican fighter, but an all-time great fighter, point blank, period. So this video right here is going to be a review on the first ever fight between Danny Lopez and Salvador Sanchez. You know, they fought twice. And I wanted to highlight this particular fight because this is a very, very key fight in the career of Salvador Sanchez. This is actually the night that Salvador Sanchez became champion for the first time and really began to establish that greatness and go on albeit a short-lived run because of, you know, his short life, but a dominant run that boxing really hasn't seen many runs like his since then or even before then. You know, not many compared to the career of Salvador Sanchez. So let's talk about it. Danny Lopez, Salvador Sanchez. The faithful day was you know, the day was February 2nd, 1980. You know, Veterans Memorial Coliseum, Phoenix, Arizona. And at that time, when Danny Lopez fought Salvador Sanchez, Danny Lopez was that guy. He was the man. I mean, he had made 7 defenses of the WBC Featherweight title. Had a very similar frame to Salvador Sanchez, a taller featherweight, a longer featherweight, definitely a hard punching featherweight. These are the things that Danny Lopez is known for. And, you know, going into the fight, 7 defenses of the title before he fought Salvador Sanchez. He was only 2 fights removed because the fight happened in 1980. 2 fights before he fought Salvador Sanchez. He actually had the 1979 Ring Magazine Fight of the Year with Mike Ayala, which I haven't watched yet, but I will be watching soon because I'm very interested in seeing what that fight's all about. But, you know, it was Fight of the Year, so it can't be that bad, right? But, yeah, that happened. And the crazy thing was, at this time, Salvador wasn't really known. Like, Salvador Sanchez wasn't no big star. In fact, he was not a big star and such an unknown that when they made the fight, a lot of the TV broadcasters before and the matchmakers were like, Salvador who? You know, they weren't really too familiar with like that because he hadn't yet established himself in the weight class or in boxing in general, you know. So it was a chance like many fighters get in their careers to rise to the occasion. And when Salvador did a brilliant job in doing that, I might add, and we'll get to that in a second. But, you know, this is also, when Lopez fought Salvador Sanchez, he had fought some really good guys. But because Danny Lopez was such a tall guy and such a rangy guy for the weight class, there really wasn't many guys his size at the weight class. Salvador represented the first guy in the weight class that was the same height, around the same size as Danny Lopez. And, you know, and then Sal, he was coming into the fight. He was coming off of a win over the Filipino contender, Sal Clemente. So yeah, man, that's just what it was. Salvador Sanchez in this fight, right? When we talk about what makes him special, I mean, in this fight, you see him mix up his offense a lot. We're talking about, darting in, darting out, coming back with the 1-2. We're talking about lead right hands. We're talking about the 1-2, and then the up jab, and then throwing the right hand, and then dipping out of the way all in one motion. Then there were some times where Salvador Sanchez would be right in the pocket. He would have Danny Lopez not really throwing a whole lot of punches, and then sometimes he would just dip, freeze him, and then come over the top of the right hand. He showed very versatile offense in this fight. He showed the ability to have quick twitch muscles and really just use that to his advantage. One thing that I don't think Salvador gets enough credit for is that world-class jab he had. He showed it in this fight because it's always easier to jab a guy that's smaller than you, or not always, but generally speaking, it's easier to jab a guy with shorter arms than you. But when you have a guy that's around your same size, around your same reach, then it becomes a bit problematic. It can be if you don't know what you're doing. But Sal showed that what he was doing in this fight. He did a great job mixing in the feints of Danny Lopez. He did a great job of sometimes leading with the right hand. He threw so many lead right hands in this fight, Salvador Sanchez, that I'm curious. Like, I know Floyd Mayweather is a student of boxing, and like sometimes like when you throw the lead right hand, it will kind of look Mayweather-esque. And I almost want to ask Floyd, if I ever do get a chance to interview Floyd or just talk to him, I want to ask him, did you watch Salvador Sanchez in your career, and did he have any influence on your style? Because you watched how he throws the lead right hands in this particular fight, and you can't help but see some Mayweather, tendencies there. But that's just my little observation. So the fight, he got out to a quick start. Salvador got out to a very, very quick start. In round one, he used that size and mobility to start fast against Danny Lopez. He was constantly moving his head off of that center line. It's rare in this fight and in many of his fights that you really see Salvador Sanchez's head on the center line. And for those that don't know what the center line is, the center line is when you're boxing, just imagine there's a line in the middle of your face. And boxers don't really do practices of this as much today, but generally when you're punching, if you're throwing the right hand, you want to have your head off the line. If you throw the left hand, you want to have your head off the line. And you want to be moving that head off the line at all times because you don't want to give your opponent too many times to hit you. Danny Lopez at that time was one of the best offensive fighters in boxing. And you wouldn't be able to tell in this fight because that's how great Salvador Sanchez was, transitioning from defense to offense and offense to defense. The Salvador Sanchez right hand was so effective early in this fight. He was showing, like I said earlier, showing many different variations of it. Sometimes throwing it to the body, sometimes throwing it off the jab, sometimes throwing it as a lead punch to start a combination. Lopez had his fair share of success, but in those exchanges, when Sal landed flush, landed cleanly, he was getting the better of those exchanges, which at that time was a big deal because you got to remember, this is a guy that had defended the WBC title 7 times. This is a guy that was one of the best offensive fighters in boxing at that time. And Danny Lopez would later, after his career, he went on to become one of the 4 or 5 Hall of Famers that Salvador Sanchez defeated in his career. So, it's not like he's fighting a quote-unquote bum. Mind you, Salvador Sanchez had a lot of fights in Mexico, so he was experienced. He was very match sharp at that time, but he never fought at that level. When you fight at that level with more attention on you, sometimes fighters don't perform. He looked like he was a natural. And he looked like he was where he was supposed to be. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah. And just the best way to describe this fight from Salvador was that he was fighting a smart, calculated fight. A lot of times when we talk about Mexican-style boxing, right? We always think about 2 fighters in the middle of the ring with no defense, hitting each other. That's what we hear about. But to me, that's not even the true Mexican style. The true Mexican style would be like what we've seen from Eric Morales, Manuel Marquez, and at its best, when we talk about Mexican style executed at its best, it's Salvador Sanchez. It's because to me, when I think of Mexican style boxing, I had to think about the characteristics of what makes the Mexican people, what makes you know, what do the Mexican people and the Mexican culture hang their hats onto? And I think of obviously hard work. I think of attention to detail. I think of joy. You know, a lot of Mexicans that are very joyful people. You know, when I say attention to detail, I mean, if you look at like the food from Mexico, like tacos, burritos, enchiladas, any great food from Mexico. If you think about all the great Mexican artists, Chalino Sanchez, Vicente Fernandez, and so on and so forth, they put in a great attention to detail to their music, which has been loved the world over. And it's no different with boxing. Salvador Sanchez, to me, when it comes to the details of the sweet science of boxing, we're talking about a guy that he knew his punching range. He knew his defense. He knew how to counterpunch with both hands. He had punching power in both hands. He was defensively sound, whether it be inside or outside. He could fight on the inside. He could fight mid-range, and he could fight outside. He was a complete fighter. There was nothing lacking. There was nothing that he didn't have as a fighter, you know? And this fight, to me, when we talk about best masterpiece performances of boxing, I put this one right up there, you know what I'm saying? Another thing he did really well is, like, in this fight, Salvador Sanchez with the long, rangy, powerful puncher in front of him, like a Danny Lopez, he was able to have a lot of success, particularly in the middle rounds. And as the fight went on, once he got Lopez's timing down, he was doing a lot of, you know, catching and shooting, you know, blocking and countering over the top with a jab. Which, again, Mexican fighters don't get credit for having jabs, but this is a guy that had that, and he would even use it as a counter. He would even use it as a catch and counter type of like setup to bewilder and confuse his opponents, and he did that here with Danny Lopez. And yeah, they actually had Sugar Ray Leonard commentating that night, and he was very complimentary of Sanchez. In the commentary, he was saying that Sanchez was fighting like a true professional, and mind you, this is at a time where Salvador wasn't really known. This is at a time where Salvador was his really first big like opportunity to make his stamp on the boxing world. So at that time, to have Sugar Ray Leonard, you know, saying what he was saying about Salvador Sanchez, it was a big feather in his cap, and it made him look good. And the funny thing enough is that this fight was in 1980. The following year, 1981, if I'm not mistaken, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but the following year, 1981, Salvador Sanchez and Sugar Ray Leonard were the Ring Magazine Fighter of the Year. They both won Fighter of the Year. They were both so great that they had to give it to both of them. You know what I'm saying? So that just shows you the level he was heading on, and how quickly he grew as a fighter from 1980 to, you know, 1981. And 81, just for those who are wondering, 81 was the year that you know, Salvador knocked out Wilfredo Gomez 8 rounds, and he beat like Roberto Castanon and you know, Pat Caldwell and these kind of guys, but the Gomez win being the top win. But ultimately, look, in this fight, when you talk about the skills, all the skills in boxing, I'll say this performance from Salvador Sanchez was such a great performance. And by the way, just so you know, he continued doing most of what I said he would do for the rest of that fight. And Salvador Sanchez wound up stopping Danny Lopez in the 13th round, you know, because, you know, it was 15 rounds back then. So credit to Lopez. You know, Danny Lopez showed what it meant to be a champion that day, because I always say, like, being a champion isn't just about when you win the fight, but how about when things don't go your way? You know, when you're fighting a guy who's better than you, or he's getting the better of you, and you know you can't win the fight, do you pack it in and just get knocked out and stop fighting? Or do you take your beating like a man, still try to find a way to win the fight, but at the end of the day, you're just not good enough, but you still find a way to grind it out through the fight and take that guy in the deep waters and maybe take him the distance. In the 15-round era, with a fighter as great as Salvador Sanchez, to go 13 rounds with him at that time, and mind you, you have to believe at that time Salvador's mind, his hunger was on a whole different level, because it's his first world title opportunity. So of course, he's gonna go on there and give it his best. So for him to go 13 rounds with him, I know, you know, he was the guy that was supposed to win, but still, for him to go 13 rounds with him in the first fight, and then in the second fight, when they fought, which I haven't watched yet, I'm gonna watch that soon. when he went 14 rounds in the second fight, to go an extra round with him, and mind you, the second fight, from what people say, was closer. I don't know because I haven't watched, but the scorecards are closer, and I read articles about it. They say it was a little closer than the first. It was closer than the first fight, but he was an honorable champion, a dignified, honorable champion. And if you were to ever, if let's say if I had a son, right? Let's say I had a son. If I had a son, and let's say my son came up to me and said, "Dad, I want to box," I would tell my son, if you want to box, that one of the first fights I would put on for him is this fight, because that's how textbook this fight was. That's how perfectly executed Salvador Sanchez's game plan was. That's how many different skills he showed on the night were in this fight. It's one of those like maybe 5 to 10 fights in boxing history where you can say, if you want to box, watch this fight, because you'll learn a lot about the sport and how to do certain things in this fight. It's one of those type of fights, one of those performances. We call those clinics. It was a boxing clinic against a Hall of Fame opponent. So that's my little summary of Salvador Sanchez versus Danny Lopez. Let me know what you guys think, and if you guys watched that fight before, let me know any observations you may have and what you thought about Salvador Sanchez's performance in the fight. I want to start doing more of these videos where I just go back and I review classic fights that I have watched, fights that I haven't watched. So if you guys have any fights that you want me to watch and review if I haven't already, I'll be more than happy to go and do that and make the videos for you guys. But leave your comments down below. Make sure you guys take the time to subscribe. And like I say in every single one of these videos, you can love me or you can hate me, but I'm just a kid from Danny. So until next time, take care, guys. Thank you for watching another video on True School Sports, the home of boxing. If you made it this far, do me a favor and do yourself a damn favor. Hit that subscribe button and surely you will not be disappointed. True School Sports bringing you the latest and greatest, the untouchable, boxing content, interviews, news videos, breakdowns, live fight reaction extravaganza. We've got a great community of people here, boxing fans all over the world, from America to the UK to Australia, and on and on and on. So join the empire today. Hit that subscribe button. Take care and God.